Okay, so I'm going to have to get this one out now because this has actually been on my Google page for about 4 days, and I'm going to have to do it before the information and the video I'm going to put out to you now is actually figured out from the people that's following me on Google and steal the information. I've actually got 3 videos ready for you. I've got one already half made on the Movie Maker, I've got one that's hidden from you, and another one after this. I made one yesterday, so we'll just get on with it. So you can't expect a next spectacular video every time I make one. I'm not going to edit this in any shape or form, so it's just showing you the image. You go check them, okay? And this is actually Malta, and can you see how there's actually concrete around this, and it's exactly the same colour as this, and yeah, so these are like bricks inside here, aren't they? And so you can see, I mean, it's concrete, right? It's not coral, is what I'm getting at. And this thing is actually mud rock, right? I don't care where it is. I'm more interested in how things are built, so you can go take the information and apply it somewhere else and come up with your own explanations. Is the main reason why I do this. And it's like, why do you think that that level lines up all the way around, right? All the way around there and there and there, right? It's because there will have been wooden laths or twigs in between here, and and then it was smothered in mud. You can actually see part of it there, smothered in muck and clay, and the wood rotted away. And that's why you're left with something that looks like blocks that wouldn't stand up. You wouldn't build anything like this, would you? Ever. At one time all this was one solid piece, right? And it just cracked as the wood rotted away, and it just collapsed like a house of cards and looked like this, okay? This is just something else I can show you. I've shown you many of these. Again, it's saturated wood, petrified wood, and other things that I don't quite know about yet, but 90% of these artifacts, these statues, were built from wood. I've shown you it many times. If you're hearing it for the first time and you think I'm crazy, which you will do, you're going to have to check my previous work before you click off and disappear. And if you do that, I don't care. That, you can see, it's modern day joinery. It's where the beard, right, because this, as it's been outside, there will have been weather in ancient times, and the beard and areas like the beard will have got damaged, and there will have had to have been replaced time and time again, like this part here, and they just clicked them into position. I've shown you this many times, and you can see that, I mean, look at it. It's, you can see the wooden rings, all right, but it all just turns into mud rock, saturated wood. There's absolutely no doubt in what you're looking at there. This thing here, again, this is another one I've not shown you before. I'm showing you many images I've never shown you before over the next few videos, and one I've just made. That nose there has been replaced, so this statue must have fallen over in ancient times, yeah, and they had to replace the nose, and it was made out of wood. You can see how thick it was. Look at it. And this is what it looks like once it's been buried in something like a great flood and turned into clay, as all this was buried in clay and being under pressure at such depths of whatever the great flood was, and it got filled in with silt, and you can see the tree rings. It's clear as day. So that's just another site. You can go check that image. The site I showed you, what Brian Forrester was pointing out, I said it was made out of wood. I'm not showing you it again. I actually spoke about the so-called vents in the Great Pyramid. This is actually the King's Chamber. I said the walls actually looked like compressed wood, like wood chip, compressed, yes? And that's exactly what this looks like, right? And it's exactly the same material, and it's what the so-called burial tomb is made out of. It's just a box, but this is actually the Queen's chamber vents, yeah. And people think that these are huge blocks that go back into the wall, but they're not, and they're absolutely not, because if you look, there's a rim, what we're looking at here, about 2 inches thick. So this is a thin veneer of, what does it look like? It looks like some type of wood or plaster that will have been painted or something like that, but it's a thin veneer. You can see it there. You see these holes here. There's a hole there and there's a hole there. That will have been locked into position. We've got things like this today, and you can, and they will spin around. And actually there could have been, well, there were vents. These were vents, but not in the way that we're taught. Yeah, they were just like vents what we've got in skyscrapers. 2/3 of the structure is buried, isn't it? So you can go check that image if you don't believe me. This is the Sphinx temple, and people again think that these are huge megalithic granite blocks, and this is not granite. It's some type of veneer, whether it was wood or some type of cladding, some type of plaster. You can see it's there. That is, as it's zoomed in on that area there. Okay, so everything you've been taught is not what you think, and this is actually Malta, right? People think that these are megalithic blocks or even coral. How old do you think that is there? Look at this area here. I've told you most of this stuff is concrete, and people are right, concrete doesn't last that long actually. Most of this stuff is actually almost Portland. It's Portland cement. Concrete will last longer than cement, right? It's actually concrete underneath it, and then it's got like something like a cement over it. But it does last a hell of a lot longer when it's been buried in silt and sand, airtight. It's the air that rots everything away in this realm, isn't it? So if something's buried and then archaeologists come along, right, and unearth it and put it on show, within a few years it starts to corrode away, right? And they can't hide this stuff anymore. They've hung themselves, is what I'm getting at, because all these sites, Puma Punku and everywhere, I'm starting to expose it, yeah, and there will be more than me starting to expose it, as this information gets out, because all these sites are going to start corroding, right, within a few years. So how could they be thousands of years old? Okay. People that don't want to believe that these were mud. I ain't going into this again. I've made 2 full videos on it. If you don't know what mud rock looks like. Okay, right, I've done that on the last video. Yeah. So, the site in Puma Punku, this is the Sungate, and I got into it, and this was some type of wood veneer. You can see where these things were nailed into position. These are nails holes. Yeah, these are not drill holes, these are nail holes. Right, there's no spirals in these, I've told you. It's what comes after it that's new. I just had to start with this because people still want to believe, and I get messages that, oh no, this is high technology in stone. Well, these lines are not lined up like as if they were on some lathe and some high precision drill lathe machine were going up and down and drilling these holes, because they would all be absolutely precisely straight, and they're not. And there's no spirals in them because of the 6-inch nail holes. And this is just saturated, petrified wood. Anyway, this is known as Hittite, right? And how old do you think that is? Look at how brand new this is. this surrounding area is absolutely devastated, and there's rubble and stuff all over the place. That has been printed in there within the last 10 years. Look at it. And again, as people start to look into this stuff, this will start to corrode away like that has, because it's exposed to the air, and it will corrode away. Unless they come out and spray some spray paint on it like they have been doing the statues that were made out of wood that's in the museums. I've shown you Egyptian statues where they've been spraying something like a radiator paint on them to make them shiny, yes? And these were made out of wood, weren't they? And obviously this is like a saturated wood. You can see that. It's exactly how you would carve a wooden log. I think all this, what you see now, anything that's left here was once either mud or wood. And I'm almost at the point now, I probably need to make a separate video on it, that the pre-flood world was completely different in ways you can't imagine. I'm talking about the most of the rock that you see on this earth now didn't even exist in the antediluvian era, right? All there was the so-called pillars of the earth, which is the basalt, which is actually beneath our feet, which is the foundations of the earth, yeah? And then there was soil, soil for the trees to grow in. And all the rock since is either petrified or saturated wood. Some of it's mud fossils, and the rest is various levels of mud rock. Slate is mud rock, and you've got 5 different stages. Or metamorphic rock, which is all the same thing, right? So all there was in the Adamic race was basalt, soil and trees, and after the flood is what we're looking at today. That could be a different video. Again, this is Machu Picchu. What do you think that is? It's obviously a wooden beam, isn't it? Yeah. I'm going to show you some fakery now. Actually, this video, I probably should have just got straight on with this, actually, because this is the main reason for the video. Right, for the longest time, the megalithic community, before I got into doing what I'm doing here with you now, this area down here, you see how all this is knocked off in huge chunks. I've seen many images, Veneer, Vlad9 VT, and all them people have made video and showed on Facebook and everywhere. They've put this alongside of the broken obelisk, under it. I've shown you that there were giant fingerprints, and the explanation for it were like a belt grinding technology that grinded rock away, yeah? But that was done within the last few decades, and it's and it's the controllers and archaeologists of this world that are trying to hide what this stuff was really built from. Because I've told you that this stuff, this house here, when it was originally built, were built from wood, mud, and whatever else goes into making a modern house, right? And it's turned into stone. They've knocked pieces off it, and I'm going to prove it to you now. This, you see that down there? That was a wooden lat. That was a wooden lat. Yeah? You see them? There was absolutely no reason for them to knock those off unless they were trying to hide history. I will put the next few images through the movie maker, right, to drive what I've just shown you home, okay? See how all these squares, it's like you lay down, like you build a fence in crisscross wooden lats, yeah, and then you would smear mud over it, or that happened during the flood, okay? And it's since turned to this, and you're just left with an imprint of what this thing was built from, okay? Right, that's out of the way. I can probably get on with the next videos now. This thing here, yeah, I'll say this and that's it. The explanation from the megalithic community is that the people that did this, that this is from the second era. They talk about 3 eras, right? And the Inca and all that, which is bullshit.